Hi guys, I'm Laura Vitale, and on this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, I'm going to show you how I like to make street-style tacos. I am so excited. This is one of my favorite things in the world, and we are lucky enough that we have a little place. It's not that far from us, which is wonderful. That makes the best street-style tacos ever, or at least that you can get locally. And I love this recipe. It's super simple and it's super easy. I make it all summer long, and we love it. I am also gonna make a salsa verde to go with it. Not traditional, but I love it together because where we order from gives you a side of salsa verde that is so good on anything, but particularly for me, it's really good on these. So let's get started. Ideally, you wanna use a skirt steak. For some reason, skirt steak is really hard for me to get anywhere near me locally. So the next best thing would be a flank steak. So I took a flank steak, I layered it between a few pieces of plastic wrap, and I've just been pounding it so that it's a little bit thinner, cooks evenly, okay? Cooks evenly, and then that way, it's both easier to cook and you've tenderized it. Okay, let's go on and make like the marinade for the beef, which is technically carne asada, right? Easy and simple. You'll need the juice of an orange. I'm gonna just put everything in my measuring cup just to make it easy. I should really get a fork. Hold on for 1 second. Okay, juice of an orange. You need a good bit of olive oil. And then I'm just gonna add straight in here a pinch of oregano and a good amount of salt, good amount, pepper, like that. And then for the garlic, I am just going to grate 2 really large cloves. If you were chopping it, dicing it, mincing it, bump it up to 4, because when you grate it, that flavor becomes so much stronger and it becomes almost like spicy. So I always tend to use half the amount if I am going to grate it. Otherwise, if I just was going to chop it, dice it, mince it, whatever, I would do 4 cloves. But these are also pretty giant cloves. Let me just find my grater. I'm just going to go right into the liquid because it will disperse a lot easier. Now, when it comes to marinating anything, you want to make sure that the vessel that your meat is gonna go in is just big enough, okay, to hold the meat. Because otherwise, if it's too big, then what happens is, the meat is not really gonna be coated that well. The marinade is just gonna swim, right? So you see how, what I did there, I kind of poured it at the bottom, so the bottom has marinade. I don't know if you can really see. And then I'm gonna take the cilantro and make sure you give it a little bit of a chop, because when you do that, it will release the flavor. And then I have a jalapeno. I do it by hand, but you can mince it, cut it up however you like, but we like heat, so I put just about a whole jalapeno chopped up in there. Okay, pour the rest of the marinade on top. And this is gonna have to sit somewhere to marinate for a bit. I mean, you can do this overnight, although you gotta be careful because the acid can start to break down the meat. I leave it in there for several hours, which I think is pretty perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna set this aside, and then we're gonna go ahead and make the salsa verde because I want that to cool and get ready for when we cook the steak. I'm gonna go ahead and make my tomatillo salsa. There is my salsa verde, which is made with tomatillos. There's a few ways you can do this. The easiest way is probably just to take your onion, your garlic, your jalapeno, and your tomatillos, and you boil them until tender. That's your easiest way, and you get a really beautiful, vibrant salsa verde. I also like the roasted method just because it gives you a little bit of a deeper flavor, a bit sweeter because it kind of caramelizes the tomatillos and the onions a little bit. Either way, the recipe ingredients are the same. The outcome's slightly different. You do you, boo. I have my oven preheated to 400. When I do the roasted method, I like to start it on my cooktop because sometimes tomatillos can take a little longer to develop, a charred look around on the skin. So I just put them in a cast iron pan like so. I don't add any oil. You don't need to. And I just leave them like that, basically, until they start to develop some color. When they start to develop some color, I'm gonna add a small onion. I don't roast the onion. I just throw it in when the jalapenos are done. A small onion that I've quartered, jalapeno or serrano chilies if you want to. I'm using jalapenos because my neighbor grows them and so I have them. That I just took the top off because I actually cut it by accident. I like to cut it in half. I leave the seeds in because I like a little bit of heat. And then you need a few cloves of garlic. My eyes are watering from the onion. I'll just do 3 because like I said, these are quite big. So I'll do 3 cloves and I'm gonna add them when the jalapenos have developed some color. And then additionally, you'll need a little bit of chicken bouillon powder, lime juice, fresh cilantro, which we will use all of that later because we don't need it right now. But I want to see if the tomatillos are starting to grab any color yet. And I do this in a cast iron skillet so that I can just pop it right into the oven. Getting there, but not quite. Close, but not quite yet. They're looking good. Develop some color top and bottom. Add your jalapeno. Like I said, I do not add any water. I just add it all in there. Onion, garlic. Everything goes into a hot oven at 400, 20 minutes or so, or until the tomatillos are nice and tender and cooked through. That's it, that's all. Easy peasy. I'm just gonna throw it in there. I'll let it cool just slightly, and then we will blend it with the cilantro and the lime and the chicken bouillon, and it's just chef's kiss kind of good. Where's my mapin? Because it is hot. You know what? I'll just use my apron. All right, it's been about 20 minutes. I took these out. I let them cool. I think it's best if you let things cool. This is, by the way, why I toast them ahead of time, because look at the color that they develop. They don't develop a ton of color in 10 minutes, so always a good tip. Add them to a food processor, a blender, a mini blender, whatever your heart desires. Might I add, I think you should double the sauce. I'm just saying I think you should double the salsa because it's that good. Cilantro. And then my seasoning is gonna come from a good hefty spoonful of chicken bouillon. I'm gonna go ahead and add some fresh lime, and then I'll taste it after I'm done, after I've blended it. And if it needs more salt, then I can add salt or I can add more bouillon. So it doesn't make a difference, although I think the bouillon makes it so much tastier. Okay, lid on, and now just blend. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, that looks good. Oh, that's delicious. Oh, that is spicy. If you don't like spice, take the seeds and the little veins out of your jalapeno. That might be the spiciest jalapeno I've ever had, but delicious nonetheless. Look at that. Look at the color of that. If it's a little bit thick, you can always add a couple tablespoons of water just to thin it out. And it's absolute perfection. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this in the fridge covered until I'm ready for it. It is best if it can cool and chill and kind of meld all the flavors together. And you're pretty much done for now. It has been several hours. You can kind of see that the meat is starting to turn a little bit gray. That's from the acid. So that's from the lemon and from the orange and the lime. I want to give you some options. Life is full of options, as they should be, and you get to pick which options you choose to cook the steak. If I'm working with a skirt steak and I'm making this on the Blackstone, before I marinate, I like to cut my skirt steak into tiny pieces, right? I cut strips and then I cut across into tiny little bite-sized pieces. Then I marinate, then I cook the whole thing on my Blackstone, and it's heaven and it's perfection. When I do a flank steak, I like to cook it whole and then slice it into thin little strips to put on my taco. The reason I do that is because I think flank steak, because of its size, it can overcook easily and become tough. I don't like to do that unless I'm doing it on my Blackstone or a flat griddle. Otherwise, if I do it on the stove top in a skillet, I'm gonna have to do this in many batches so that I create really gorgeous crust and not steam or boil the steak. I hope that makes sense. So if you're using skirt steak and you're doing it on a Blackstone or a large flat griddle, cut it before you marinate it, and then throw the entire thing on there, and it's perfection. If you're gonna use a flank steak, you're gonna do it this way, then slice it, then put it on your tortilla, and it's divine. So I'm doing it inside today because truth be told, it's not only 98 degrees outside, good band, but it's also raining. So otherwise I would do this on my charcoal grill. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna take this really hot grill pan. I keep that on there because it gives it flavor. Okay. And then I take a weight. This is just a cast iron weight. It just kind of presses it down so that it makes it cook evenly and the sides don't curl up. And I'm just gonna go ahead and cook this for about 4 minutes per side. And once it's done, I will show you what it looks like. I'll let it rest for a bit. I'll toast my tortillas, and then we make delicious tacos. Steak has rested 4.5 minutes per side. Should be absolutely perfect. Let it rest for 10 minutes covered. But honestly, if you want it cooked less, cook it less. If you want it cooked more, cook it more. I think it's pretty perfect. It kind of makes everybody happy. I like to cut it nice and thin because I told you when I'm working with flank, that's the key, is to cook it just right. Cut it nice and thin against the grain. And then if you wanted to, if you say you were really bothered by the fact that it's not in small little pieces, you could always take your slices, cut into tiny little bites like that. Chances are, if you cook it right, there's gonna be some goodness happening at the bottom of the plate. And then when that happens, you can just take that, hold on, moving things out of the way for you. Take that on a corn tortilla. It's gotta be corn for me because that's just how I roll. Don't forget we made salsa, which is very spicy, but just how I like it. And then, I don't know about you, but it has to be topped with fresh cilantro, fresh lime, and some onions. And that is pretty much perfect. That lime is not giving, but it's fine because we have lots of salsa, which is delicious. That is the best. That is the best. I'm sorry. I have no words other than the best you'll make at home. Probably the best around, hands down. Go to laurainthekitchen.com for the written recipe. Hope you enjoy spending time with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.